Hello everyone, TOavn here. Today I'm gonna walk you through this remake that I did a while ago. Now, there was a bunch of people telling me to make a tutorial about this, and by a bunch of, I mean 2 or 3, I don't remember. But I can't really make a tutorial about how to make a similar track to this, but what I can do is walk you through it. So I think let's just go. I'm gonna go over the arrangement first, and then the sound design, and then the mixing and mastering. So, arrangement. The intro is the intro. It's this ample guitar. It's a free guitar VST that you can get, and then some pads, which I'm gonna teach you how to do in a minute. And then here is just some bass happening, and then some pads. Then here, pretty much like the original track, because that was the goal here, is to at least try to nail everything. My CPU's dying. And then these guys, which is a lot of things that I'm gonna talk about in a minute as well. Then the sub bass. And then whatever. And then this piano as well, writing something in a piano roll, something that is being played by hand, is kind of hard. Manually humanizing every single note, not every single one of them, but some of them, like this is not 100% on the grid. I manually shifted it by pressing left alt on your keyboard and then drag it around freely. Can do that, and then manually do some velocity stuff on each note as well, which I'm gonna teach you how to do in a minute. It's pretty easy though. This was the piano actually. As you can see, it's quite something. Then here. Then the second drop. Now about these little fills. I think I've tried enough to nail the song, but those little fills are just it's a lot of things happening. I can hear a reverb vocal and then distorted something with some piano harmonics with some percussion action, and I don't really want to remake that because it's a lot of work. It's so detailed and stuff, which is I'm guessing Potter did something and then tossed it on the actual project. I'm guessing those are sounds from another project or something like that, which he did. I'm pretty sure that's the case. They're pretty hard to remake because of that. So I basically took some fills and put it inside the thing so that it sounds like I nailed everything, but in reality it's just a sample of the actual song being played. Listen to that. There's actually a lot of things happening. I just don't know what, and I don't want to know. But that's what it is. And then the outro. Again with the velocity and manual shifting every single keys. Not every single one of them, but yes. And the velocity as well. So now I'm gonna talk about the sound design. So pads like these are pretty easy to make. Basically what you do is you turn this into audio, which you can do pretty easily with FL 20.7, the new update. It has been around for quite some times, but I've never used it. But now that I've used it, it's pretty handy. Just right click on this, you render as audio clip, and then you render the thing. And when you're done with that, you can just go to audio. You got your stuff there, double click on it, you get this, press left Control plus E to drop it inside Edison, and then Control B. And then you get this thing, the blur thing. You get this, and then you increase the amount to 100%. I mean, not 100%, but to the max. And then accept. And you get that. This is what you got before. This is what you get after. And I think that's actually the thing I did here. I think I time stretched it and then blurred it inside Edison. But that's how you make really fast, good sounding pads inside Edison. And I did the same to this. By the way, you can preview those audio clips by left alt and right click. So I did the same. I tossed this inside Edison, and then I blurred it, and I got this. Beautiful. So moving on, I'm gonna talk about the pads real quick because this is something. This is a harmor. Which is this sample is actually this sample. It's a part of the lead that is playing in the original track. And I took it, I tossed it inside harmor, and isolated this tiny section. And I got that. But I did something in the envelope, volume envelope, to like make it a little patty. Not that much attack, really long sustain, kind of a long delay, and a release. So it's basically like this. Into this. Very soft thing with some chorus involved and some unison as well, and then compression. And then the morphine is basically just a preset, this preset, which sounds like this. Layered with the harmor, sounds kind of interesting. And this sub is literally just a sub. I mean, you look at the operator 1, and it's a sub with a tiny amount of saturation, which can be done by just bringing this a little bit up. That's literally what saturation does to a sound. And then moving on. And then the supersaw is just a noise with a harmor. This is basically just like you open up Harmor, you just crank this to 9 unison voices, and then you go to the P section, and then you raise this one octave up, and you just make a little bit, just a tiny bit, like just a tiny bit of settings in here, like the phase on negative something, and in the actual sound the phase is positive something. The pitch is slightly up, the pitch is slightly down, super wide, not that wide but wide enough. And then in the effects, just chorus and then compression. Something like that. If you're curious on like how it really was made, then you can download the FLP, which I'll link in the description. And then compression. This Maximus is actually kind of like OTT, but not quite. The idea here is to kind of like bring the mids down just a tiny bit, and then also the highs, but cranking it up so that it's kind of audible, but not like piercing. That's why this is kind of like this curve right here. And no lows, because who needs that? Of course. And then you get that. That's it. That's a pretty basic sound designed thing right there. That's super basic. And then we get the lead. So this lead is actually the sample. That little part of the sound, I literally took it from the original track and I put it inside Harmor and then isolated this section again. And I guess compression and distortion? No, just compression, chorus. Okay. And then we get that. And also this citrus, which is just a saw wave being distorted. This is a saw wave. And then I ran it through the filter. And then I went to wave shaper, yes. And then I made some shape. This is before and after. It's just a subtle layer stuff going on here. You can't even hear the citrus, so that's whatever. And then the bass. It's I clicked here and then got rid of some high harmonics. So it's kind of like a saw, but it's kind of rounded. 2 voices of unison. No panning whatsoever. A tiny bit of pitch and phase. And the phase randomization is at almost 100% separated or random. And then when I was done with that, went to effects and distorted it, and then compression. And here I did some stuff with the higher, in the high frequencies. So I high passed the thing, and then chorused it, and then this is the original. This is the 2 combined together. It's kind of like a mini layer happening again, which just kind of works super well with the chords. And then and this one is just a saw wave. Yeah, it's kind of like a saw wave. It's a saw wave, and then in here there's this thing, a low filter, which is doing kind of like the hovering effect, or sidechaining rather. This little thing is just, it's just Harmor with it's basically a square wave. And then you go to the phaser, you activate the phaser, and then you select the harmonic mode, and then you go to here, you go to frequencies, you make this weird shape, and that's it. Oh, so this is basically a mix, like it's from a square wave to immediately a saw wave. So it's doing this motion really fast. You can't see it because it's super fast. And how do you get the ARP effect? You just go here. Basically, you click this and then you go here and then activate the ARP thing in here, as you can see here. ARP direction down, up, down, and then up, down, sticky, and random, which you can do. And this is basically off. That's how it sounds like when it's off. When it's on, I think I did some automation with it. Yeah. I don't know why it's on the right, but that's whatever. I think the drums, it's just that this is a loop for house music. I think it's a loop from Black Octopus Sound, the huge free library they put on to, like, it's basically free to download. Don't know if I can find it. Yeah. It's called Mega Free Sample Collection. That's the sample. It's kind of like from the same. Yeah. And then that's also from the same cymatics. A bunch of crashes. I mean 3, and then noises, which you kind of need because I felt like the drop on the original track was like really like full, and I noticed that there was a lot of noise activity going on the drop. So that's why there's a lot of noises. Then moving on. And then this one. Oh my god. This thing. If you pay attention to this part on the original song, you will notice like that vocal sample is being played to the left and then to the right. And then this part, if you really listen to it, you will hear some kind of like lo-fi, not lo-fi, but really like low quality kind of sound effect. I didn't know how he made it because it was too cool for me to like even think about the actual way to do it. It was so well made and creative as well, because like the ability to like blend in that type of sound, like that really underwatery kind of sound into the mix is just clever. Like, how do you come up with that idea? That guy is super creative. If you haven't noticed, then I suggest you to go listen to the track and listen to this specific part, because damn. This is basically one of the things that was really challenging to me, because I didn't know how to achieve that kind of sound effect. So my take on it was, so I don't know if you guys have the sample pack by Cymatics called Utopia, but it's basically filled with a bunch of Putter sound, including this sample. So I just took that and then I dropped it inside Harmer and did some stuff with it. What I did with it was I basically activated the phaser, and then harmonic mode, and then went to custom and made this shape. Now this shape is kind of weird because what will happen after you made this shape is some frequencies are gonna behave in a weird way. In like a very underwatery way. So that's kind of like my approach to it. As you can see, it's only on this section and kind of on this section as well. And then this one, this serial thing, is this. This is normally like kind of like a blend in between the two filters you have here. So if it's like all the way here, it's both filters happening at the same time. If it's here, I don't actually remember. And if it's here, I don't remember. But that's all I know for now. When it's here, it's both of these filters are being activated, which means I took that idea and then automated this thing to like mix the filter in. One last thing was this vocodex. Yeah, because if you wanna like achieve that kind of underwatery sound effect, then of course you're going to toss in a vocodex, because vocoders in general just kind of get rid of some high frequencies and messes up some of your low mid stuff. So I took that and then I did that and then I mixed the thing in again. I mixed the thing in. Yeah, that took a lot of time though. Yeah. This is just the supersaw playing softly. You see the velocity there? Yeah. And then this is just like, again, a sample from Utopia. And then I just did the same process, like just put it inside Harmor. Basically kind of using Harmor as a sampler here. This kind of like a Reese bass is just what it is. It's a Reese bass. It's a saw wave, slightly phased, phase randomized, and unison, tiny bit of stuff happening, and then distortion, and then chorus, and then compression. And then the strings playing softly in the background. This piano is literally just, it's just the piano. And this kind of like 8-bit sound. It's just Harmor with some volume envelope stuff. And how did I do that? Actually, I clicked on here and then I got rid of a lot of harmonics and I just left these guys there. And that's that. And then the piano is, that was pretty hard as well. So how you do that, right? The velocity thing. I'm just gonna reset every single velocity. And how you do that is by selecting everything. Now, I didn't really select everything, but I did it like with individual parts of the piano playing, like these guys. Like Oh my god, that's super loud. Like different velocities for these guys, different velocities for these guys, and different velocities for these guys. How I can do that? I'm just gonna be really straightforward here. You just select the certain parts that you kind of like want the velocity to be random. You basically highlight them and then Alt R to randomize something. In this case, velocity. As you can see, it's doing some stuff. But don't be crazy with it though. You want to be softer. So just a tiny bit. You do that. Then you hit accept. And again, you can press left Alt and then scrolling up or down to change the velocity. The overall velocity of the whole thing, as you can see here. And then when you're done with that, you can go like, I want these guys to be kind of loud, but not super loud. So you highlight them, Alt R again to go here, and you can randomize them again. You can just pick some kind of randomness with this seed stuff. So you can just do that. You want to be, oh no, not the pan, the velocity there. Then you hit accept and remember what you want. You want them to be, oh my god, I forgot these guys, but that's okay. So you want these guys to be kind of loud. So again, left Alt scroll up then. So because I want them to be kind of loud. So already you get like really humanized sounding piano by just doing that. And then yeah, you basically do that for a lot of if you really want to nail a really perfect piano sound, then you gotta do that for every single notes. Not every single one of them, but most of them. Like you have the basses, the kind of the melody, and then the yeah, these guys. So you have a piano playing. As you can see, I made these guys a little bit quieter and these guys a little bit dynamic and loud. The basses kind of loud as well. Don't forget to manually shift some notes to make it sound like it's been played by an actual human. Like this. Like this. And yeah, that's it. Just comment if you've noticed that I forgot something. And I'm mixing and mastering. It's pretty easy. You can basically stick to some rules that make sense. The one we already know. Every elements that don't need subfrequencies, just get rid of them. And you basically do that for everything except for the kick and the sub. Let's go here, for example. So basically to make room for the supersaw to shine, you gotta get rid of the lows, which is what I did here. And some fine adjustments as well. This is basically just to make it sound good and to make it sound like it belongs to the track. A patcher, what is this? This is a mid-side EQ actually. That's that, and then some reverb, and then this leveling tool is just the compressor actually. It's free, you can get it for free. I'm gonna leave a link in the description for you to go and get this thing if you feel like doing it. This is basically just like compressing it so that it's not like really upfront. This is a theory by Matt Zhu. he said in his live stream or video, I don't remember, that if you want something to be like really upfront, then you gotta let them be really dynamic. But if you kind of like wanna not make something really like noticeable and super present, a way you can deal with that is just compression. So I took that idea and I applied that to this track, and sure. So yeah, compression to kind of like bring it back a little bit, and then mid-side EQ, reverb, and then an actual EQ. And then the bass has already some really cool high harmonics, so it just layers perfectly with the supersaws. As you can hear. The lead is this is TDR Nova, a free dynamic EQ that you can, again, if you feel like doing it. Just got rid of some frequencies there because, my god. A bit of reverb, again, mid-side EQ. I did some stuff in the side and did some stuff in the side. This is actually the side and this is the mid. And then that's a pretty extreme EQ I did here. Alright, I don't even know. I don't remember that I did that. But okay. The drums, I just put a wave shaper on the kick to kind of like boost the volume because it was kind of I also curved it a little bit so that not super long but crunchy at the same time. That's what this curve is all about. That's why. And then the clap. This is a little bit, there's like some curve stuff happening here, but it's so slight. And then flanger, because why not? And then EQ. This is just this is just an acoustic snare that is being bit crushed and then compressed and then EQ'd. In Effector, you can basically do that by just unchecking this bypass thing and then choose lo-fi and then choose a range where it sounds good to you and then dial in the wet and the dry. So you get a satisfying result out of that. And then the perks are being high passed. I shouldn't be using this actually. Let's use this. This is also a free transient shaper. It's basically just getting rid of the transient. Instead of like sidechaining the hats, you can do that. So you can preserve some of the brightness, out of them instead of being completely ducked by the kick and the snare. I mean, it's still been sidechained, but really slightly. We're basically making the listener focus more on the drums on this track. As if it was mine, it's just a remake. And that's kind of how I mix my stuff. Because I'm so used to it, because I make dubstep, kick and snare, super loud. And then here is actually, this snare is FPC snare 2i004.wave. It's an FPC snare. It's been bit crushed and compressed and EQ'd. This is a clap, power clap. I don't know what that is, but it's a bunch of claps. Okay. This is a kick from ESL by Native Instruments. And then now this is also like a neat trick that I've learned by remaking this track. That like you get that really bright, clear piano sound. You can basically achieve that by just compressing the heck out of the piano. You can do that by EQing it first. You get rid of some low frequencies so that when the compression happens, it's not suffocating. Because if you put like a sound that has a lot of bass into compression, then it's gonna basically make the other frequencies suffer. Yeah, you can try it and you will notice. So getting rid of the lows before and then reverb. And then compression. There's not even like any lows happening here. You basically, how you do it in Maximus, you can do this. You can crank the attack so it is snappy. Same on the highs. As you can see, some attack. You can increase the attack to give it attack. Some more attack. And in the master, just compress it normally. And then some EQ, just for good measure. I got rid of the lows again, because why not? So without any effects, that's how it sounds like. Then with the effects. Now it really fits on like parts that are a lot of high frequency content happening because of it being super bright and super plucky and piercing and really clear. Yeah. In like chill parts, that won't work. Let's compare really fast. But this is with Maximus. This is with OTT. Kind of sounds similar. Yeah. Now the sidechaining. So I have an envelope controller that is like a lot of stuff which is not worth talking about in this video, but I'm gonna make a tutorial about this specific sidechain technique. But it's basically an envelope controller and a mixer insert that is like where everything is routed to except for the drums. And then I loaded a limiter inside it, right clicked on the gain, link to controller here, and then you see every single articulator. So I picked one because on one there's this thing that has this shape, which is basically the sidechain for the kick, and that's how you get this funky looking dude. It's not as insanely destructive because in the original track, I noticed that the sidechain wasn't super insanely intense, but it was there. You kinda can hear everything with the drums, but not the drums over everything, which was still kind of noticeable that the drums were loud, but they wasn't as loud. But yeah, that's how it is. It's not super insane, intense sidechaining. So how I did it was I wrote the MIDI for the drums, and I just copied the thing and then pasted it here. And I kept only the kick because, of course. In this section, however, there was no sidechaining happening. I guess, yes, there was no sidechaining happening. It was just this kick being high-passed just a tiny bit so that it won't interact with the actual sub, which is here, which has all the sub, and yeah. And about the mastering, mid-side EQ, and an EQ, which is not even doing anything, and a multi-band compressor. In this case, I'm using Maximus. In the mid-side EQs, I cut the lows and boosted a tiny bit of the highs, and got rid of some frequencies here and here as well. And in the mid, I just did that. This is basically just to taste, because like in here, around here is all the mud is coming from, around here. And I just got rid of some frequencies there. And same here, because in here you usually get the super harsh frequencies and you want to get rid of them. How do you make a mid-side EQ in Patcher? Well, load up Patcher, you load up Stereo Shaper, and then you right click on Stereo Shaper, and then on Output and Audio, and click Send 1. It's basically gonna make an extra output for you. And then in here, you double click on the thing, and then you do this. And then in here, you right click here, and then click Send 1. And now you can pretty much load anything. If you want to do some mid-side processing, you can. But in this case, I'm gonna grab an EQ, and then do this, and do this. And then make sure to disable this because of some phasing issues. Then right click here, drag this, drop this here, and then you do the same. And if you solo one, you can hear it's only the sides, and if you solo this, it's only the mid. If somehow you get confused, you can always, rename them, and then you can do your EQing like that. Well, your mid-side EQing. And in the side, you may be confused as well, because like you can't see anything, but it's still doing something. You can't see it, but it's doing stuff. So that's how you do it. In the compressor, I like the mids to stay dynamic because it usually sounds good and punchy this way, and the low as well. As you can see, the sub of the sub is a tiny bit lower than the sub of the kick. This is basically how you make your drum come through. This is how you make punchy kicks. You just make sure that the sub is a tiny bit lower than the sub of your kick. As you can see, it also sounds good when the sub and the kick are in the same level and your track is sidechained pretty hard as well. It also sounds good that way, but if you're aiming for that punchy kick, this is what you gotta do. And I like my highs to be kinda low, because you don't want your highs to be super loud. Otherwise, it's gonna be super piercing and unpleasant to the ear. And in the master, you just crank it up and engage soft saturation. As you can see, I'm just gonna copy this real quick. As you can see, the ceiling is on 0 dB by default. And how you engage it is by just moving the threshold a tiny bit, just a tiny bit. As you can see, it's just this amount. That's how you get the clipping effect, but it's not clipping. And about this release time moving, I'm gonna be explaining this on a separate video, which I'm gonna be making soon. Basically, the reason why you would do that is because You want the moment when the kick happens to have a low amount of release time, because when the release time is low, then it means that it's gonna be distorting. In this case, we want the distortion and the clickiness to happen when the kick is happening. This is the mid-side separation, stereo separation. The high is a tiny bit wide. The mid, I don't really make it super wide. The lows, you want them to be mono. Mono enough, not super mono, but well. And that's pretty much how I master most of my tracks. And basically, that's it. I think I explained everything in here. Feel free to look at this project. I'll put a link in the description for you to get the FLP. Yeah. If you feel like you learned something, consider subscribing. And if you feel like you learned, gently hit that like button if you feel like it. And yeah, that's it for me for now.